Some of the most uncanny sensations or perceptions of gang stalking is feeling like a bunch of people are trying to tame you. Do you know how when you check out rodeos, there is a bull and there is a bunch of people trying to tie the bull to get the bull under control? That is exactly how I felt when I was working at the Oreilly Auto Parts in Imperial Beach. Even my coworker Mike Waters yelled at me one day and said, "Be obedient." A gang stalker literally told me to be obedient at work. If I personally would have to go through this again, I would have called HR immediately because that is simply unacceptable behavior. It literally felt like if I was some type of beast trying to escape from these people. I literally felt like a wild animal. There were times where even gang stalkers themselves said out loud, "This one is almost ready. We almost got him." And even there were times where I was at work, these gang stalkers would talk amongst themselves. "Did you get him yet? Did you get him yet?" That in itself was one of the most surreal experiences I have ever lived. The worst thing is that these people, aside from taking care of their business, each of them was doing their part to tame me, practically. It literally felt like that. When they got me was when I was lost in thought. When I was lost in thought, and gang stalkers simply had to do the upkeep. Once you are lost in thought, gang stalkers simply had to bang loudly. They simply have to walk by you and cough. And every time you hear that, you get lost in your mind. Gang stalking is a methodology of keeping people stuck in their head and they are not able to really be present. Gang stalking literally keeps you stuck in your mind. I also remember that there were times where I snapped out and gang stalkers would literally say, "Oh, he got disconnected." And this includes Oscar Ledesma from the Oreilly Auto Parts in Imperial Beach, Maximus, whatever his last name is, from the Oreilly Parts in Imperial Beach, and even Vernice Rivero in the Oreilly Auto Parts in the Imperial Beach. They have said, "Oh, he got disconnected already." Connection is when you interpret everything as against you. Let me explain to you how gang stalkers put targets in that state of mind. First, every time you look at a gang stalker or at any participant of organized harassment, the time that you make contact with them, they do a fast movement. They also do a facial expression. They talk about you indirectly, or they do one of the things that they have sensitized you to. They will actively make you feel less by speaking in double entendres. They will whisper things under their breath. All of the aforementioned people have done this to me. And the only reason that I stayed quiet was because of the sheer impossibility of it. Over time, all of this harassment and double entendres change how you perceive your reality. If something impacts you negatively, whether or not it was done purposefully, you will interpret it as if it was purposely. You see, for the entire 3 years that I worked at the Oreilly Auto Parts in Imperial Beach, my coworkers were doing and saying things purposely to harass me, double entendres. And over time, you get conditioned to interpret things as if it was purposely done to F you. This is the conditioning. Over time, you will interpret anything that has a negative impact on you as purposely done to harass you. Why? Because for the 3 years that I worked there, my coworkers actively did things to harass me indirectly. They would purposely make disgusting messes in the restroom because I have to clean it, and they would laugh about it in my face. Bernice Rivero would say things such as, "Oh, you shouldn't work in retail anymore." Or she would underhandedly harass me by saying things like, "Oh, that sweater that you're working looks really familiar," with that same tone of voice. Every time I would walk into the store, immediately, every time I would look at my coworkers, they would make an evil grin. They would say things like, "Damn it." And they would whisper a bunch of things with the intention of making me believe that I was hearing voices. Over the 3 years that I worked there, this harassment led me to hear voices. Additionally, there were times where the store would be slow And my coworkers would pretend to hurry up. They would tell me things like, hurry, you have to do that, and you have to do that fast, even when there was nothing going on in the store. There were times where my coworkers walked behind the sales floor, and they would purposely leave me in the front. They would hide behind the curtain where they had a clear, unobstructed, semi-unobstructed sight of the sales floor. And by that I mean that the battery rack is on the south side of the store. There is a battery rack, and behind the batteries there are black curtains. I saw my teammates several times peek behind the black curtains, and they would look through the curtains to see how there was a long line. They would be hiding behind those doors, behind those curtains, and they would see the entire line. There were times where I was shaken with anxiety. I finally understood what their intention was, why everyone was behind the curtains. And when I refused to be pressured, they walked out of the curtains. They walked from behind the curtains, and they would come out disappointed to help me when there were 4 or 5 people on the clock, and it was only I who was working. There were times where they would leave the phone ringing only to add to the feeling of anxiety. This went on for 3 years. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say, and I need help on straightening this out. I was harassed at the Oreilly Auto Parts for 3 years, and my coworkers at the time were part of the harassment. That harassment made me hear voices. It nearly drove me crazy. That's why I had to quit that job. I don't know where to look. I don't know what to do. If one of you can point me in the right direction, I would really appreciate it. Thank you.